as you can see here, Terraforming Mars, we are going to do some analysis of the game and expansion coming up.
Hi, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from Meeple University. Welcome back to my weekly Tabletop Diary. Today we have actually a suggestion from one of our viewers, Yanis. So thanks Yanis for doing analysis on a game. How it changes, how it changes our perspective, how it brings, could be anything that we think about the game, really.
Yep.
So Tarrant, Terraforming Mars. Who introduced us firstly to this? I think I introduced us. From a BunnyCon, I think it was
MeepleCon a couple of years ago. I remember it was it had just come out. It was very big at the time. Not a lot of copies around because obviously it, those who remember,
yes,
it sold out of its first printing very quickly, and I think we had to wait a good 4 or 5 months after playing it before getting it.
Yes.
So we played it at that convention. It had been, there was a library, it was either a library copy or someone's copy.
Yes.
But it was in very high demand.
Yeah, and I
definitely remember that.
By one of our friends.
Yep.
And then I taught you afterwards. This was like a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Pretty sure.
Your time was, my first was your second, was it?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but you play solo after. Anyways, that's how I got introduced to this. I found that the first time I play, it's probably like similar to the first time you play, is you don't know what you're doing maybe, because it's a card drafting. And I'm pretty sure I did not card draft at the start, because that's more for experienced players. I love card drafting, especially in 2 players, you have to card draft. But for new players, you just draw randomly. I think that's recommended.
Yeah, I think the first time I played, it was with drafting. Made it quite a long game, but
okay. Or you can handle it anyway.
Yeah, it was a while. There's definitely
Yes.
a lot of information. I think obviously this has become one of the classic hobby games of this era, and spawned a whole lot of expansions and the big box.
So many expansions
that's out there now.
And do you have the latest box of the expansion somewhere?
TURMOIL. It's somewhere. It's not with this. It's in a...
We tried to put everything in one box, but we couldn't because we sleeve all the cards.
Yeah, it didn't all fit
almost
in
all
one
the
box.
cards.
We've got it all in 2 boxes. We've got this is just the lid, but the cards live in colonies, and then everything else lives in
the
main box.
Yes.
I remember when it first came out how empty the box was.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, this box is bigger than it needs to be. And it's so heavy now with everything in it.
And we've got the AA board as well, which came from the last expansion, and I think either currently still on Kickstarter or previously just finished Kickstarter, the big box of Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
So how did it change your gaming perspective? Did it change anything? Or I feel like this is a unique one. I don't think there's anything that quite like it, with very highly interactive in the middle. Obviously card drafting is interactive. Engine building, it's actually, this is the thing though, I feel like in this game you would do a solo. It has got some solo play, like individual puzzle, but you just have to remember, if you don't realize that and see what happened in the middle, which is the interactive part, and you probably lose the game. You have to watch what everyone's doing. Yeah,
I think what this game has what this game does very well, in some ways it's a conventional engine builder, but then in other ways there's so many different things you can do, and they're all very thematic.
Yeah.
If you look into it.
Yes, the cards.
I think that's what's quite interesting is that you look at the way the resources go together, and the first many times I played it, it would have just been, all right, this resource is going up, this resource is going down. I get money, I can buy stuff. But when you look at the different sorts of tags and the way that's woven in with, you know, sort of genuine science, you know, it's really enjoyable that way. The fact that, you know, you can get lots of points out of animals, but there's not very many of them, and they can only come once you've done a pretty reasonable amount of terraforming.
But the expansion has got more though.
They've got the colonies as well, changes that. And then you've got the... You know, it took me a long time to realise that when you're generating power, you're not normally spending power cubes, you're spending power production. And it's like, why do I have to spend production and it's the rest of these is cubes? But you realise, oh, I've built a power plant and now I'm permanently putting that into effect, powering this city. And there are certain things that, you know, quite sensibly stop where the prerequisite is a max. Like, I think dust seals is one that you can only do really early when it's still just a big dusty wasteland.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of things there that it makes, if you want to look at it that way, it makes it tell this interesting story as well. And I do really like that about the game.
I do remember one thing, a short description about the game in our recent Ask Esther in BGG, which has. And your description, would you like to share that with the audience, description of Terraforming Mars? Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, so Tarrant, like to think, this is the sequel, a few billion years after, of the game called Terraforming Earth. Yes, I love that.
I've forgotten about that.
The sequel of Terraforming Earth. Yeah. So yes, it's got the expansions. I think expansion makes it more interesting. We've played a few times before we play the expansions.
Yeah, I think the what was it? So the first expansion was the extra boards.
Was it?
Yep, that one came out first. The Hellas and Elysium.
Oh, the extra board. Yes. I remember that now. We played that.
Yeah, I like the variety that gives you, because after a lot of times on the basic planet, you know, things will form in a similar way. So I like the different boards, but I did often find there was one of the boards in particular where I felt the milestones and awards were a little bit more fluky. Like sometimes you needed, I think there was one where you needed a certain number of, biological tags, and they can be hard to get.
Okay, yeah.
Or there was one where it was resources on cards, so you needed cards that took resources. So there were a couple of those that were a little bit tricky to get. And I found that one could be a little fluky, but because the base game, the way the milestones and there was an end game thing you could do with every resource that balanced out really nicely. But I still do like the variety that those boards bring.
Yeah, I do like the Venus expansion because it's one of those that not many people usually that I've played with using Venus strategy. So it kind of like being, you know, drafted and then left to me to take. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll take it. And then I like that milestone with having floaters or something like that on Venus.
Yeah, Venus is interesting. It takes it in a very different... I know it's not the most popular expansion. I know a lot of people sort of see it as this thing that's off to the side and you can sort of ignore it. And,
I quite like it, actually.
But it gives you a new way of getting points.
Yeah.
And it was the first thing that really brought those resources on cards into play as well. And I know that one of the other colonies, I think, brings a lot of floaters in Jupiter as well and really increases the floater economy.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I said, because not a lot of of our friends that we played so far using Venus as one of their strategies. So I ended up with the card, so I can try to combo it properly. I know that it's like it might probably take a few different combos to actually do, but you know, I think I just like it. I don't know, and I usually like the green strategies or. It depends on corporation card you get, or the heat strategy. That's the easier one. I think it's one of the simpler strategy. Well, also, you audience at home, please tell us what's your favorite strategy and what's your favorite expansions of this game, and whatever what attract you to this game as well. We just want to know. Yep. And the colonies is turmoil.
Prelude was the next one.
Yes. Okay.
Which I know anytime you see a post on what expansion should I get, everyone says Prelude's a must. And Prelude, I can understand it. It shortens the game by 2 generations, and it gives everyone a bit of a kickstart, so that, because I know there are people who definitely think this game goes too long, so that sorts that side out.
Okay.
It also means that particularly if you're not drafting at the start, Prelude gives you some engine build to start with if your cards aren't as good.
I like that, actually.
It gives you a way to focus. So it's definitely a good way to get people, newer players, into the game as well. Because it was ages before we used to play with starting with one production on all of them, which I think is one of the variants in the rulebook. We played that for about a year before we started playing with zeros. And Prelude lets you specialize a little more, so it is a really nice way.
I really like it. It's like just to boost your engine at the start. And Turmoil that's the one with more area control issues in this.
Turmoil's that new
Senate.
one. It's got the little Senate thing. It did add a little bit of time to the game, I think, because we played with Turmoil but not with colonies, and I think we did play with Prelude, and it went to normal game's duration.
Yes.
And I was surprised it added so much, but in terms of time. But it added a few extra ways of getting points. It slowed down your money because you kept losing terraforming rating. But it was there was a little bit more upkeep than the other
ones,
things, but it added another interesting mechanic to the game.
And how is it as solo game? I know that you've played it a couple of times.
It's been a while since I've played Terraforming Mars solo, and I've only ever played base solo, but I always enjoyed it solo. It was you've got, in the solo mode, you've got 14 generations to complete the 3 global parameters. And the times I won, it was at the very end of the 14th generation. And there was always, like in the base game, in the multiplayer game, there's always one that lags, and you end up spending a lot of your money on that one rather than doing the specific things like getting the temperatures to make it go up. I definitely always enjoyed it as a solo game. Yep. I haven't added the expansions into that yet. It's been a while since I've played a lot of solo, but
I started playing solo these days, so I should probably give it a go. And we've also introduced some of our friends to this game, and they actually bought them, pretty sure, at least 2 that I can remember. Bought and played them as well, so happy to do that.
I think it's the sort of game that's always like, there's a lot of things you can learn about how things combo together to get good at the game. But then there's a lot of fun that can just be had by the way you build your engine. I know one of the opinions that often comes through for this game is that it is a fun engine build.
It is.
Even if you're not
winning.
Even if it's not going anywhere, there's a lot of fun to be had in the way that you build up your network.
Absolutely true. I totally agree. It's a fun thing. It's a satisfying thing when you build your engine this way, although you're not winning, but just something about it. This is one of the games that we play quite a lot, and every time the expansion brings, we have excuse to play more, basically.
And I'm always interested when I see new strategies that end up popping up. Like it was, because we've probably played it 20 or 30 times, there was a recent one where someone had managed to combo like all of the discount cards together. Like they were getting a 7 credit discount on Earth cards and 4 on everything else. Or or someone had got like a couple of things that leveled up the value of titanium, and there.
Wow.
And then colonies adds that whole. Colonies is interesting. It extends the game. It definitely makes it longer.
Yeah.
But it gives you more certainty if you go down one of the obscure tag pathways, like the animals or the viruses. It gives you a lot more control over that, which sort of changes up the strategies again.
Fair enough. We have Jacob, the designer, tips on Terraforming Mars. I've got it in one of my, maybe a few months ago, or last year or something like that. It was at Spiel 2019. So I've got that, tips and strategy for Terraforming Mars. And I remember one of his tips is to collect cards. It might be expensive, but you'll be surprised. At the end, you run out of cards and you don't have cards and you need cards.
Yeah, I have had a few games, especially if they've gone a little bit longer than expected, that things have slowed down at the end, and essentially all I've got is a lot of money to buy more expensive cities and greeneries and things.
Plan ahead,
forecasting,
get the cards.
sort of seeing how the game is going, how quickly it's going, and trying to manage that.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to mention about Terraforming Mars? How has it changed anything? I mean, I know that it's engine building. You have to make sure that you look at everything, but it's quite, I don't know, it's different, like Wingspan, it's streamlined in that way. Yeah. But I still think it's
this one there's not
more satisfying in a way.
It's another one where there's not too many different things in the tableau.
That's correct, yes.
Which is
that's why.
Helpful.
Yeah, so that is Terraforming Mars. But please let us know what you think of the game, as I say earlier, or even like how you play solo, what expansions you like, and suggest us if any games you like us to bring. Let us know. So as usual, if you like this video, enjoy this conversation, we do this weekly with a few different topics. So hit like on this video and subscribe to us if you haven't already done so. And that's it for now. See you next time.